hell is even that?
Among Wolves is what you get when you mix jank, banking on nostalgia, and stealing other people's content. It's a third-person action-adventure game where you play as Kiara Bell, a young intrepid explorer as she runs, jumps, climbs, and swims her way through tombs. The developer claims Among Wolves is inspired by the 90s classic Tomb Raider, but there is a line between being inspired by something and straight up ripping it off, a line this game crosses. Now, being the big Tomb Raider fan I am, I was immediately interested in checking it out when I saw it, and it seems I picked the right moment as the game's now unavailable on Steam. It released via early access the other day from developer M3M, or AW Game as it's now changed to, and immediately was accused of stealing content from projects of other Tomb Raider fans and the Tomb Raider games themselves. And after playing it for almost 2 hours, I can safely say it's pretty blatant. It cost around 10 quid, but thankfully I managed to get a refund. First, let's talk about the gameplay, and it's safe to say Among Wolves does nothing new with the Tomb Raider formula. You find yourself jumping your way through the levels to throw the levers and press the switches required to move on. Sprinkle in the odd bit of combat with the local wildlife, and it's a pretty by the numbers adventure. There are a number of secrets in each level if you decide to subject yourself to a longer playtime. The menu says they can be exchanged for money at the end of the level, which could be an interesting mechanic based on what can be purchased, maybe between locations. But the main focus of these games are the levels. They're decent, but there's a reason for that. Now, I love a good Easter egg or homage. It makes me feel like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But when a decent chunk of your game is taken from someone else, it becomes a rip-off, despite how many times you claim it's inspiration. The game takes copious amounts of its level design from the first Tomb Raider game and fan-created content via the level editor. I took some time to capture both games to show some examples. But it's not just the level design that's been inspired by other people's work. Twitter soon found that the game was using similar class names in its code to that of U-Raider, an action-adventure game framework for Unity. It seems Among Wolves at its core is built using the hard work of other people and charging money for it. Looking through the Steam reviews and discussions, it even seems that previous versions included animations and sounds lifted directly from the Tomb Raider games, which were replaced when people called them out. But how is the game itself? Well, it feels very janky. The devs say there's a grid system to the movement, but the gameplay feels very loose. As much as the tank controls in the Tomb Raider games are disliked, you always knew what Lara was going to do when you pressed the button. It's not something I can really explain, but I'm sure the footage you're seeing shows how chaotic the platforming is. And that leads us onto the controls. The menu states they are rebindable, but I didn't try it so I can't say if it works or not. But it's nice to see that option. You can change into a walk mode by holding shift, but it seems to be odd behaviour when you move sideways. Your pistols are mapped to the mouse buttons, so you use the right mouse to draw your weapons and then left mouse to fire them. There are shotgun shell pickups in the game, so it seems there will be other weapons, and it would be nice to have them bound to the number key so you can quickly change between them. Moving on to graphics, it's not terrible looking, it's just a bit bland. The early access version has 4 levels which the developer says are polished, but it just looks really cheap. Most of the level geometry is plain colours, which can look nice if there's enough variation in the geometry and enough details to make up for it. Would have been nice to see some more overall detail, and there are large areas where a surface is just a single colour or you're running through corridors that look like the default of a game engine. The highlight for me is the valley level, which is more open-ended like the level from Tomb Raider, with small temples to visit and caves to explore as you try to find the key items needed to move on. There's a good range of locations tied together by an area with numerous vegetation and an interesting landscape. If as much care had been put into the indoor locations as the valley, the game would start to give off a more sense of being polished, and not just appear to be a hastily thrown together cash grab. The levels also look exactly the same as one another, which can be attributed to them being in the same geographical location, but there needs to be something visual to set each level apart. Using Tomb Raider as an example again, the first level was mainly caves, whereas level 2 started in a primitive city area, Lost Valley had the large open area, and the Tomb had a different colour palette and much more detail in the environment. But the main issue with the graphics are the animations. There's a large amount of clipping and glitches when targeting, and multiple animations play at once. More work was definitely needed here, and there's no clearer example than the lever pulling animation. I understand this is early access, but it's obvious not much thought has been put into this, since the stolen animations were hastily replaced with what we have now. The models are nice, even if Kiara seems like it was brought straight in from an asset pack. The enemy models have a nice style to them, and overall, it's a coherent aesthetic. With some more work on improving the levels themselves and animations, this could be the best aspect of the game. Finally onto sound, and the first thing that struck me was the abnormally loud gunshots. They're so much louder than anything else in the game, and there's no way to turn them down without also lowering the volume of something else at the same time. Aside from the volume, pistols have a nice sound effect to them, and overall, the sound in Among Walls is pretty nice. Like any good action-adventure game, the music only comes in when the action's happening, so you get the sense of isolation which made Tomb Raider so interesting. Said music doesn't overstay its welcome, and it fits quite well. The sound effects are of a nice quality, and there's different footstep noises depending on what surface you're running on. Kiara makes the noises you'd expect as she jumps around, but my only complaint is the lack of sound underwater. There is a nice underwater ambience, but Kiara makes no noise as she swims, and the sound effects that play like levers being pulled aren't changed. So in conclusion, while there is some promise with the graphics and sound, the fact the game seems to have been built upon the hard work of others is pretty disgusting. If the dev removes the stolen content and puts the work in to make their own interesting levels, alongside with making the game feel less janky, this could be a nice playthrough for fans of Tomb Raider looking to kill some time. But that's all I have time for this week. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to be notified when I upload next. In the meantime, I've been Drax, and thanks for watching.